Alright everybody, welcome back to Voyage RC. Brian here. Gonna do a little short review on the build of the X6 Cube from XFactory RC. As you can see, I got the kit sitting here, body off. Did get it painted, used some Tamiya paint, green and silver. Turned out pretty good, so thumbs up on that. You can see I don't have any electronics or anything in it. Haven't quite decided on what I'm going to put in it. I do have a TeknoAXE RSX ESC, and I'm wanting to get a Airtronics M12 radio for it. So, just waiting on money like usual. Anyways, starting off with the kit. First of all, I'd like to say props to XFactory and Paul and the boys for the design of this. It's a really trick design. It looks really good with all the carbon fiber on it. A lot of tuning options built into the kit, so it gives you that tunability to fit your driving style and the track and what you're gonna need. You have the ability to add flex to the chassis or stiffen it up quite a bit, and you can get an aftermarket transmission mount that goes right back here and kind of stiffens it up a little bit. So props to them, they did a good job. As far as the build went, I'd kind of personally rate this as like a middle range build. It's not hard, but it's not easy, if you will. It's kind of, takes a little bit of kit building experience, but not a whole lot. So if it's your first kit, say you're going from a B4 ready to run or something, just take your time. Pay attention to the instructions. The instruction manual is detailed fairly well with good pictures. They're not CAD drawings like Associated and TLR and all that, but they do have good, clear, visible pictures to get you going. So it's very easy to follow. The parts out of the box were bagged very well. The instruction kit's it's labeled, bag A, bag B, bag C, not step 1, 2, or 3, So you just grab bag A, that's got all the parts you're gonna need, other than what, you're reusing from the B4 kit. And this will work for any B4 chassis, B4, B4.1, B4.2. I started with a B4.1 World's Car that did have the 12mm big bore shocks bundled with it, so that worked out well. The instructions for disassembling the B4 are written very well, and it's very detailed on what you need to keep and what step you're keeping it for. So when I disassembled it, I took the screws and pieces and whatnot and just put them in a Ziploc bag, labeled them, step D12 or whatever, That way when you get to bag D, step 12, you got those parts right there ready to go. You're not trying to find the right size screws or anything. You got them all bagged up, ready to go for you. Takes a little of the headache out of it. Some of the aftermarket parts I have on here that don't come with the X6 Cube kit or the B4 kit. I have the J Concepts carbon fiber front shock tower, and I've got the Lunsford turnbuckles with RPM ball ends on them. Probably can't see it, but I do have a ST Racing Concepts aluminum front bulkhead, and it does have the 12mm big bore shocks. Other than that, it's pretty much just a B4.1 World's Car that I bought the X6 Cube kit for, and upgraded it. So the first thing I want to talk about is kind of prepping the carbon fiber for the build. The instruction manual that XFactory put out does have a nice detailed page on prepping the carbon fiber. This will help it last longer and help it from delaminating. Basically what you do is you just kind of lightly sand the edges and then clean it off and apply some CA glue that you would use for your tires. just a thin bead around it. It doesn't take a lot, but that helps seal it up. Since carbon fiber is a laminate type deal, it can delaminate in time, especially on some of the rougher tracks where you're, you know, hitting stuff and whatnot. I would recommend just, you know, take your time with all the carbon fiber pieces. Prep them really good, get them sealed up. This also does kind of help make the build a little easier, especially for the front top deck support pieces here. They are very tight, so if you take your time to prep it and get the carbon fiber, you know, prepped and ready to go, it will eliminate some of the tight clearance issues on it. It's more or less tight front to rear, going between the braces on it. They were a little bit of a pain to get in there, but I was able to work them in there just fine. So just take your time, prep the pieces. It'll help with longevity, and you know, you won't have to be replacing your chassis and whatnot very often. So that's always a plus. Those can get a little pricey. Did want to mention that in my kit, I don't know if this is a fairly common issue or very rare, and I just happened to get one of the rare occurrences. There were some screws that were supposed to be supplied in the kit that I was missing, which in my case it wasn't a big deal. I had spare screws laying around, especially from, you know, disassembling the B4, and not every screw off the B4 is required for the new kit anyway, so I had spares, but I was missing a couple. I could probably count them on my fingers on one hand, so it wasn't very many. I don't think Paul and the boys at XFactory bag the screws themselves. I think they come pre-packaged from their supplier, so not necessarily an XFactory problem. Most likely coming from their supplier, bagged that way, because I think that's how they get them, is pre-bagged, and then they just throw the bags in the kit. But that was just one of the things I happened to run into. Like I said, I don't know if it's a common occurrence or if I just got one of the rare, you know, 1 in a million deals. The build itself went together fairly simple. There are some, not problem areas, but, you know, areas that are going to be a little more tricky to get installed. The biggest area that was probably the trickiest was mounting the transmission. As you can see, it sits in the back here, pretty snug up against the rear shock tower. So getting those rear bolts in and the front on the left side by the transmission plate, they can be a little tricky. But if you got the right set of tools, nut drivers, you know, hex wrenches, all that good stuff. If you got the good set of tools, you know, it's not going to be an issue. You're going to be able to get in there just fine. It's just a little tricky because it's tight, and it's a little, you know, you're not going quite straight down on the hex driver on the one side and everything. So just take your time, try to line it up, and there are washers that go between the transmission block and the transmission itself, and you want to make sure, you know, you're using the same size washers all the way around. You don't want to cockeye your transmission or anything, but just get them in there and then get the screws started. And it's not a huge ordeal. It's just can be a little tricky. Just take your time, be patient. Don't let your nerves and frustrations get the better of you. But that's probably really the hardest part. Everything went together really well. All the aluminum parts are machined very well. The carbon fiber parts are machined well. Didn't really have any clearance issues on anything. It all pretty much, I mean, you just follow the instructions, it all pretty much bolted up just the way they tell you, and they do give good written instructions in the manual as far as, you know, telling you some tips and tricks to get it together, and they do tell you sometimes what, you know, the pros like to do and all that. So it is a good set of instructions. Just take your time, follow them, and it's not too bad. There is a lot of aluminum parts, so you're going to want to make sure you got thread lock on hand. You always want to thread lock the screws going into the aluminum, that way they don't back out on you and, you know, end your race for something that could have been prevented. The wing and body, a lot of people don't like the cab forward style body. I think XFactory did a good job with the mold. It is cab forward, but it is set up for the max amount of downforce they could get out of it, which is always a plus on the performance side of it. And I like the lines of it. I think it turned out good, and it's one that completely covers your spur gear and transmission and everything. You don't have that cutout like a lot of the mid-motor cars do. So it makes it easier for cutting out the body, it makes it easier for painting the body, and I think it looks better having it fully covered like that without having that cutout. But, you know, that's just me. To each their own. Let's see what else. That's right. So for steering servos, the front of it's kind of got to be sanded down a little bit. I've got a Turnigy servo I've mocked up in there to see if it fits, but they do explain in the manual that, you know, you're gonna have to shave down the what's it called, the front of it, this piece here. You're gonna have to shave it down. I don't know if you can see it or not, but you can see right in here on the corners on each side of it. It doesn't take much, but you got to round them. They come squared off. You do have to end up rounding them off. This gives clearance for the servos. I'm assuming it's going to be with most servos, but they do say in the manual that not every servo requires it. So depending on what you're running, you might be able to just sit it in there and have all the clearance you need and be fine. For me, I had to shave it down so I could get the servo farther forward enough to line up for the mounting holes. I am running a Turnigy, or I will be running a Turnigy servo in it. So it is a shorty servo, which gives me more clearance behind here for mounting the ESC or the receiver, you know, combination of the two, whatever I want to do. Really one of your few places to mount it, unless you're mounting it up on the top deck or something back here. But if you're running the transmission brace, that kind of eliminates that. And that puts it right over the battery, so you might have some interference. But running the shorty servo up front gives you that little extra room to play with for mounting your ESC and stuff. Just a recommendation. You can run a full size and get away with it, especially with the smaller ESCs and stuff that are coming out these days. They're not big monsters like they were back in the day. So I don't know, that pretty much sums it up. I'm really impressed with the kit. I like what Paul Sinclair and everyone down there has done out of a little, you know, hometown family-based company. I think they've made a very good quality, very good. I'm hoping for performance-wise. I haven't run it yet, obviously, but everyone that runs them seems to do pretty well, and they say they're good kits. So I will hopefully be able to get this on a track and get some running videos for you guys. I am currently in Bismarck, North Dakota, so at least a 2-hour drive for any track around here for me to go. So I might take a weekend and try to go somewhere. There was one locally, but it ended up getting paved over into a parking lot, so kind of eliminates that option. But I will try to, you know, get all the electronics installed, get another video out with that for you so you can see the setup on it. The setup, as far as tuning that I have on it right now, is Paul Sinclair's starting setup, which should be good, kind of all-around setup to get you going. So, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. This has been the build review for the X6 Cube from XFactory RC. Like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.